everybody, and welcome to Book Speak. And today we're going to be talking about some oldies but pretty good books from a very well-known author, but we'll get to that in a minute. For those of you that are new here on this channel, I review audiobooks, so we will be discussing not only the authors and the books themselves, but also the narrators. And I'm going to be covering all genres. And just because I'm talking about audiobooks, I would say at least 95 to 99% of the books that I talk about on this channel, you can find in other mediums. I know a lot of the really well-known authors you can find anywhere, especially the one we're talking about today. And some of the more maybe not so heard of authors you can usually find on Amazon, on Kindle Unlimited, and I'm also on Goodreads. We have a group on there. It's called Book Speak. I will put a link in the description of the channel, and the link will change about every 30 days because Goodreads changes it every 30 days, so I do have to update that. But if you are a member of Goodreads and you go to groups, just look for Book Speak. The thumbnail to the YouTube channel and the thumbnail to that group will match, and you should be able to recognize it. But you can see what I've read and some reviews that I've left on there. I'm still updating my have read shelf. But also be talking about some maybe that upcoming. You can recommend books there. You can recommend books down in the comments. There's also a Facebook group for this channel called Book Speak, and we'll do discussions there. That'll be where I post most of my updates and, maybe upcoming books or any kind of discussion that you want. The only thing that I ask is if you leave a comment or anything, please just be respectful, because everybody likes different things, and that's why I'm trying to cover all the genres, is because I like everything. From true crime to horror to science fiction, even some young adult and teen, even some books for kids. But the books for kids will be, for instance, like E.B. White's Charlotte's Web, older books, things like that. And like I said, if you have any suggestions or anything you want me to cover, please leave a comment or visit one of the pages that goes with this group. If you like my reviews, please subscribe to the channel. Give me a thumbs up. When you subscribe, hit that notification bell so you'll get the notifications of when I do new book reviews. And like I said, right now some of these books I have actually read like a long time ago, but I went back and I'm on my second or third listen to them. So it may be an older book, but you are going to get my most recent opinions on this book, because of course over time your tastes change and you become more I guess more critical, or you understand the process more. But also some of these books I have actually read like an actual book form and then listened to the audiobook. But I have low vision, so actually reading a book is difficult for me because if you can find large print books, they're usually pretty expensive, and audiobooks for me are more economical, and I get to enjoy the books. But audiobooks aren't just for people that are low vision. I listen to them while I clean the house or cook or on car trips, and I even listen to them to fall asleep at night, just like somebody would sit in bed and read until they got sleepy. I listen to the audiobooks. So therefore, I've got a huge selection in my library, and that's what I'm doing right now, is going through my library. However, I will be starting a new book. I'm thinking probably tomorrow I will be starting a new book from an author I've never read and a narrator I've never listened to. So that may be a review coming up in about a week or so. I am trying to get on a schedule, but it all depends too on how long the books are. But if they are books that I have read recently and don't need to re-listen to them, then I will go ahead and do a review on those because they're pretty fresh in my mind. Just like the review that I'm going to do today, I just finished a re-listen of this book a couple of days ago. So I will be doing that. Also, there'll be 2 more reviews coming up. I will probably upload all 3 of these reviews probably tomorrow or the next day. And that'll be while I'm listening to the new book. So, anyway, the books that I'm going to talk about in this video particular is by somebody everybody has probably heard of, whether you have read his books, watched the movie adaptations, which is something else I will talk about. If an adaptation has been made by, for a book, and I have seen the movie adaptation, I will talk about that in the video as well, because, a lot of them are hit and miss. And talking about hit or miss, especially with this particular author, there is a hit and miss on for many of his books. And if you haven't guessed by now, the author that I am talking about today is Stephen King. Now, I know there are many reaction channels, especially if you are trying to find a good horror book. He is usually at the top of the list as recommended. But he is the first author that really got me into books, as far as having to read something outside of a school situation for like a book report. And basically it's because I was introduced to his movies. And the movies I was introduced to kind of left me think, well, what is the book like? So I would go and read the books. Okay, so that being said, the book I'm going to talk about today is Cujo. And it's by Stephen King, and it is narrated by Lauren Raver. And the audiobook, and I'm sorry if I'm checking my notes, the audiobook is 14 hours and 7 minutes long, and it was released on Audible in 2016, although the book was written, way before that. I'm thinking late 70s, early 80s maybe. I would have to check that, but anyway. And since it is Stephen King, since this did have a movie adaptation, most people are familiar with the story of Cujo, which is, you know, the big Saint Bernard that gets rabies and traps the woman and the child in her car, and that kind of thing. So, the book starts out with, you have Donna Trenton and her husband, and forgive me, but I cannot remember his name, and her son Tad. Now, Tad is afraid of the monster in his closet, and his dad makes up the monster words to help keep the monster away. And for you parents out there, or anybody that has known a child, or you remember back when you were a very small child, you know, there was that fear that most people have of a monster in their closet or under their bed, or just something scary at night when you're in your room alone. Now, Donna's husband he works for an ad agency, and they have a contract with a cereal company, and throughout the book, the main character that they talk about as far as the cereal commercials goes, and kind of what's kind of a running theme through the book, is Donna's husband invented this professor to advertise one of the cereals, and his tagline is "Nope, nothing wrong here." But as you're listening to the book, you realize, because this phrase comes up a lot, and it usually comes up, and you start to realize, yeah, it's trying to portray this perfect little world, you know, happily married couple with a child, and everything's great, but the professor keeps saying, nope, nothing wrong here. But it turns out that the cereal does have something wrong with it. So Donna's husband has to go away, and because he's on the road so much and works so much, and Donna's kind of feeling like, you know, Tad is getting older, and pretty soon he's going to be going to school, and she's going to be there alone, and she's really kind of starting to feel not really her age, because they're not really older characters, but she's feeling that lonesome, what have I done with my life? I miss being this young teenager going out and doing things. So she ends up having an affair with a handyman. Well, of course, her husband finds out about it. But before that happens, they take their car, or take the husband's car, out to a mechanic who lives way out in outskirts of town. His name is Joe Camber. And you have him and his wife and his son. And his son has got a dog named Cujo, who is a giant Saint Bernard. And the giant Saint Bernard chases a rabbit into a hole and gets bit by a bat and gets rabies. But the family does not know this. So Donna's having trouble with her Pinto, and when her husband leaves to go and try to save his company and try to save this contract that he has with the cereal company, she takes her Pinto out to Joe Camber's place to get it fixed. And her and Tad end up being trapped in the car by Cujo. So, no spoilers in this. Honestly, I don't know of too many people that haven't either seen the movie or read the book, or at least heard about what happens, but I'm not going to give away any spoilers. The one thing I do like about the book is, and that is different than the movie, and here's where I'll get into reviewing the book and comparing it to the movie. In the book, you actually get the dog's point of view from before he got sick to all the way through the illness. And you find out that really Cujo was a good dog. He wanted to be a good dog, and he loved his owners, and especially the boy, and he was just as much a victim as anyone else in the book. He, you know, succumbed to this terrible disease, and he did not know what was going on. In the movie, you don't get the dog's point of view. You just see this dog turning into this murderous Saint Bernard and is portrayed as evil, but he's not. And I love the way that Stephen King had wrote that in there, because in my opinion, and I may get hate for this, but in my opinion, no animals are born bad. It's usually circumstance, illness, or bad owners that will cause an animal to not be a good pet. That being said, we're not going to go down that road because that's not this video. But also, the difference in the book and the movie is Tad's monster in his closet in the movie is really never followed through. I mean, it's just, this little 4-year-old boy that is having nightmares, or, is scared of his room at night. But in the book, it's plays on a character that Stephen King invented, who was an actual, serial killer, and, the book makes you wonder, is Tad really seeing the serial killer? Because he kind of describes him, and this serial killer was way before Tad's time. But it had turned into one of those stories, that parents will tell their children to get them to behave. If you misbehave, this person's going to come and get you, or this, that kind of thing. But there are tie-ins all the way through the book. So by the end, you're wondering, was Cujo really a representative of this serial killer? Was there some nefarious, evil, in Stephen King fashion, this paranormal connection thing going on? And the book itself really doesn't go forth and explain that, but it's in the book that way. Also, in the book, of course, I can't give any spoilers, but the book has more of a very different ending than the movie. Which, of course, producers sometimes will look at the end of the book and say, we can't do this because people aren't going to like this ending, so we're going to have to change it and make it more people-pleasing. All in all, though, the book and the movie are kind of coexistent. I mean, you can read the book and then watch the movie, and they coincide with each other as far as basic story. That being said, I think as far as a Stephen King adaptation, Cujo wasn't the greatest, but it wasn't the worst. I have my opinions on the worst, and we'll get to that with another book. But it wasn't the worst that I've seen of a Stephen King adaptation. Now, I've heard rumors that they're going to do a remake. And these days when they do remakes, those are also hit or miss. I mean, they have remade some of the classic horror movies that have turned out to be complete flops, but they have redone some that have turned out to be better. So we'll see if this comes to fruition of what's going to happen with that. And if you all would like me to do movie reviews on this channel as well, leave a comment down below and let me know. Especially if it's an adaptation of a book that I've reviewed, because there's some books that I'm going to review on here that I wish they would do a movie, but you know, then again, that's might be asking for a terrible thing. The narrator of Cujo, Miss Raver. I'm not excited about her narration. I don't think she's horrible. I just don't. I don't like the way that she portrayed some of the characters, the way she was trying to get the characters to come to life. I think that she did make Tad a bit whiny, and it was a little distracting. I do wish they had found a different narrator. She may be suited for a different book, but I don't know. I mean, like I said, when it comes to narration, it's an individual preference, I think. Some people can listen to anybody, and then some people are really particular. I have a few narrators that are just my absolute favorite. I could listen to them read, a newspaper and be enthralled. She is not one of them. And like I said, I don't narrate books, and you can tell by my videos that I probably would not be a good narrator. But I just don't think that her voice and her type of narration was suited for this particular book or genre, even. She would be more of her voice would be suited more maybe to romance or a true crime, or probably more of a true crime where you don't really have to bring characters to life because they are real characters. But like I said, to each their own. As far as the book in its entirety, I would recommend reading it, especially if you have seen the movie. The book, I think, is much better than the movie. For what it is, the movie's okay, but the book, I think, is one of Stephen King's better books. Not his greatest, but it's up there. I don't think that it's scary, but I do think if you put yourself in that position that, if you can mentally put yourself and get lost in it, it could be terrifying. But for the most part, it is not a scary book. And I would recommend. I mean, it's worth the read. Especially if you're a Stephen King fan, or if you're just getting into Stephen King. It's probably one of his easier books to listen to or to read. It's really not that long compared to some of his other books. and it's not as, doesn't have as complicated a storyline as some of his later books. So that's my take on Stephen King. It's Cujo. And like I said, if you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. And please subscribe to the channel if you want more book reviews, because I have a library of over 300 audiobooks, and I'm hoping to get to all of them on this channel. It may take a while, because I want to throw some new books in too. Not just do old books. I want to do new books, and I'm always looking for new books, so please suggest to me some good books down in the comments. I will, if they are available on Audible, I will find them. I will put them on my to-read list. And like I said, visit me on Goodreads. Visit me on Facebook. Feel free to give me your opinions of these narrators, of these stories. And feel free to tell me what kind of books that you like. What would you want me to review? And I will see you all in the comments.